the walls between us. The first time Officer Maya Reyes looked through the iron bars at Inmate 4471, she told herself what she always told herself, that the number was all that mattered. Not the face behind it, not the eyes that held the quiet devastation of a person who had been swallowed whole by a system that chewed people up and forgot to spit them out gently. Just the number. Just the protocol. Just the cold mechanical distance that kept her sane in a place where sanity was a luxury nobody could really afford. But the woman behind those bars had a name. It was Sophia Delgado. And no matter how many times Maya repeated the number in her head, the name kept finding its way back in.
Sophia had arrived at Westbrook Women's Correctional
Facility on a Tuesday in November, when the sky outside was the color of a bruise healing badly. She walked in with her hands bound, her chin tilted slightly upward, not with arrogance, but with the particular pride of someone who had decided long ago that she would not let the world see her break. She had been convicted of a crime rooted in desperation, a single terrible decision made at the bottom of the worst year of her life, after her mother's medical bills swallowed everything she had and the bank took the house, and the job she had worked for 8 years vanished overnight, because the company folded like a paper boat in the rain. She was not a violent person. She was a tired one, and there is a kind of exhaustion that can make even a good person reach for something they should never touch. Maya had processed hundreds of intakes before. Sophia's. She had learned to keep her expression neutral, to ask the required questions in a voice that was professional and clipped and revealed nothing. She asked them without looking up from the form in front of her. But when Sophia answered, and her voice steady and low, carrying the careful composure of someone holding a cracked vase, together with both hands, Maya looked up, and something unnamed moved through her. Quiet as a current beneath still water, she looked back down immediately. She told herself it meant nothing. In the weeks that followed, Maya watched Sophia the way she watched all inmates, through the lens of duty, through the filter of procedure. Westbrook was not a brutal prison, but it was not a kind one either. It was a gray, grinding place where hope was rationed like everything else, where the fluorescent lights buzzed with a frequency that slowly eroded something fundamental inside a person. Some women came in and disappeared into that grayness within months. They stopped fighting. They stopped expecting anything. They sat in the cafeteria with hollow eyes and moved through the corridors like ghosts, practicing for a haunting. Sophia did not disappear. This was what Maya noticed first, that Sophia remained stubbornly, almost defiantly present. She helped the older women in her wing carry their meal trays when the arthritis in their hands made it difficult. She spent her allotted library time actually reading, and sometimes she would write in a small notebook she had requested, through the commissary, filling page after page, with a focused intensity that made her look like someone building something only she could see. She did not complain loudly or cause disruption. She was not performing goodness for anyone's benefit. She simply was who she was. Even in a place that was specifically designed to make a person forget who they were, Maya began to notice things she had no business noticing. The way Sophia's expression softened when sunlight came through the narrow rec yard window at a certain afternoon angle, as if even a few seconds of real warmth was something she filed away carefully to revisit later. The way she laughed rarely but genuinely, and how the sound of it seemed to startle even her, like a bird that had forgotten it still had wings. It started with a book. Sophia had requested a specific novel through the library system, a worn copy of a Garcia Marquez story, and when it arrived, it had been misfiled and sent to the processing office instead of the library cart. Maya found it on her desk one morning and saw Sophia's name on the request slip. She could have sent it through the standard routing. It would have reached Sophia in 3 days, maybe 4. Instead, Maya walked the book to the library herself during her rounds and left it with a note that simply said the book had arrived. She did not sign it. She told herself it was a small efficiency. She told herself it was nothing. But she came back the next week, on a different errand she had created for herself, and she found Sophia sitting at the library table, with the book open in front of her, and that same focused, private expression on her face. Sophia looked up. Their eyes met across the small, book-lined room. And Sophia said simply, "Thank you, not for the book, but for not making it feel like charity." Maya did not know how Sophia had understood that without being told. She left quickly. She sat in her car during her break and stared at the steering wheel for a long time. The rules at Westbrook, like the rules at every correctional facility, existed for reasons that were simultaneously deeply important and deeply inadequate. Maya knew them by heart. She had built her professional life around them. She believed in structure, in the necessity of boundaries, in the way clear lines of separation protected everyone involved. She had never given herself reason to doubt her own discipline. She had never needed to. What grew between her and Sophia did not announce itself loudly. It was not a sudden explosion, but a slow accumulation, like snow that falls softly all night and by morning has transformed the entire landscape without anyone witnessing the change. It was built from small moments in the library, from the occasional exchange during Maya's rounds that lasted 30 seconds longer than it needed to, from the way Maya found herself reading the book Sophia had mentioned just to understand what had made Sophia's face look that way when she spoke about it. It was built from the terrible, aching recognition that Sophia saw her, not Officer Reyes, not the uniform, not the authority, but the actual person behind all of it. The woman who had chosen this job because she genuinely believed in rehabilitation, in second chances, in the idea that people were more than their worst moments, and who had gradually stopped believing any of it in the face of a system that seemed designed to confirm the opposite. Sophia gave that belief back to her, not with grand speeches, but by simply being evidence of it, by being someone who was surviving this place with her humanity intact and her capacity for kindness undiminished, and by somehow making Maya feel that if Sophia could hold on to herself here, then Maya could too. If you believe in kindness, in the idea that love can find its way into the smallest, most unlikely spaces that it can grow between iron bars and procedural walls, and all the things we build to keep ourselves safely apart, then let this story stay with you for a moment. Let it sit beside you the way good stories do, the ones that ask something of you after they end. The crisis came on a winter evening, during a lockdown that stretched into its second tense hour after an altercation in another wing. Maya was doing her checks when she found Sophia sitting against the wall of her cell with her knees drawn up and her face pressed into her arms, the careful composure finally gone, finally cracked open by something, the cumulative weight of it, perhaps of all the months, of missing her younger sister's graduation, of a letter from home that had arrived that afternoon containing news about her mother's declining health and the reminder that Sophia was here and could do nothing at all. Maya should have continued her rounds. She stood at the cell door instead. She said Sophia's name, not the number, the name, and Sophia looked up with a face that was devastated and exhausted and human, in a way that made Maya's chest hurt with the particular ache of witnessing someone's pain directly without any glass between you. Maya could not open that door. She could not cross that line, but she sat down on the floor on her side of the bars, and Sophia moved closer on her side, and they talked in low voices for 23 minutes about Sophia's mother, about a beach in Santa Cruz where Sophia's family used to go when she was a child, about the sound the water made, about ordinary things that felt, in that fluorescent corridor during that long lockdown, like the most extraordinary things in the world. Maya reached through the bars and held Sophia's hand and did not let go, until the lockdown lifted and footsteps sounded at the corridor's end. What happened in those 23 minutes was not a scandal or a catastrophe. It was not something that destroyed anyone. It was two people finding each other, across a divide that was never designed to be crossed by feeling, and feeling crossing it anyway, because feeling does not consult rulebooks. It does not ask for clearance. It moves where it moves, and all you can do is decide what to do with the truth of it once it has arrived. Maya put in for a transfer to a different wing 3 days later. She did it because she was honest with herself and because she believed that Sophia deserved a clear path forward, one not complicated by a guard whose feelings had become a variable in an equation that should have remained simple. She did not do it easily. She did the paperwork with her jaw set and her eyes dry and her heart making, a sound she tried very hard not to hear. But before she was reassigned, she left one last thing, with the librarian for Sophia and a small piece of paper with a poem, written on it in Maya's own handwriting, a poem about the persistence of light through narrow spaces, and at the bottom, 2 words that said everything the situation would not allow her to say aloud. Not goodbye. Something closer to I see you. Something closer to you matter. Something that Sophia folded into the notebook she had been filling since she arrived, and kept there, and read on the hardest subsequent days, and thought of as proof that goodness could reach you even in the places built to convince you it had forgotten your address. Before this story ends, there is something I want to ask of you. Leave a comment below telling what this story made you feel. Not because it is a requirement, but because stories like this one live longer when people speak about them. Because when you put your feelings into words, even brief ones, you are honoring the truth that moved you. And that truth, that love is stubborn and human. Connection is relentless and kindness can survive. Even the places built to extinguish it deserves to be honored. Sophia was released 14 months later on a spring morning when the air smelled like something beginning. Maya was not there to see it, but she had left something in Sophia's path anyway, without knowing she had, the way people who truly change us do. Not through grand declarations, but through small, quiet presences that alter the shape of who we become. Sophia walked out of Westbrook, with her notebook under her arm and sunlight on her face and something rebuilt in her center. Something that had been close to ruin and had been met, at its most critical fracture point, with someone who refused to reduce her to a number. She stopped on the sidewalk outside the facility gates and turned her face upward, the way she used to turn it toward that narrow rec yard window. Except now there was nothing narrow about the sky. It went on and on. It was enormous and unheld and entirely hers. She took one breath inside it. Then she walked forward, carrying everything she had learned about the endurance of tenderness into all the open space that was waiting for her now. And if this story touched something in you, if it moved through you the way real things do, leaving a mark that is hard to name but impossible to deny, then please give this video your heart through a like. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love is not deterred by walls, and subscribe so that stories like this one can keep finding the people who need them most. Some loves are not allowed to be simple, but they are, in their own particular and necessary way, still love. And love, as it turns out, is not stopped by iron. It is not stopped by protocol or distance, or all the careful separations we build to keep ourselves from being moved. It finds the narrow spaces. It fits itself through. It reaches and it holds and it does not let go. And that, perhaps, is the most human thing about it.